Let's get started. So um, I I will present. If you have any question during the presentation, please feel free to interrupt me. Otherwise, we'll have some Q&A at the end of the presentation. But yeah, I would like to make it very interactive with you. So if you have any question, I mean, it's appreciated even during the presentation. So today we're gonna talk briefly about what is Shopify customer events and the custom pixels in Shopify, and we will briefly explore the underlying technology that they use to implement this feature. So, first of all, what are the customer events and tracking pixels? It's a way for Shopify to track user behavior. So when user interact with the website and does some action on the website, there are some e-commerce integration that need to be aware about their actions. And the e-commerce platform need to send data to those platforms. For example, the most obvious one is Google Analytics and all the other tracking platforms, but also this is very important in the advertisement world, where advertisement platform needs to know what kind of traffic they are driving into a specific website and which kind of conversion they're driving to the website, because some of their payout are based on page views, sessions, and conversions. So it's absolutely vital for the ecosystem to have this working in a solid state. And so Shopify solution is a managed approach to this kind of tracking that doesn't require this platform to inject directly code into the main document, the main HTML document. So today we're gonna take a look at what they are in terms of like the most high-level feature in Shopify, and then we go a little bit deeper into the technology again. So let's start why this pixel exists. So mainly because some parts of the Shopify platform are closed, which means that for your store you can modify them in any way. The most important example is the checkout that is completely locked, unless, I mean, you build some checkout extension or other extensions that are very limited in terms of what you can do. At the same time, merchant requires to add any kind of tracking things to the checkout page, because that's where they need to collect some information about the user, the payments, and the conversion funnel. Historically, Shopify allowed to use a checkout.liquid file, which is a file that is rendered server-side, where people used to add custom JavaScript that were injected into the checkout. But this was very risky because people might add any script that could compromise the checkout. Well, what the the performance of the checkout, and of course there were security vulnerabilities, and they might access the DOM of the checkout. This, I mean, also in terms of privacy, it's a big issue because maybe some platforms were requiring you to add a script to your checkout, and they were accessing data of the user, for example, the shipping address, the email, the phone, while this wasn't allowed by the privacy and cookie policy consent that user provided. But still, it was the responsibility of the merchant to ensure that it was compliant. So to address these problems, Shopify created this technology. Let's see a little bit how does it work. At the root of the technology, there's something that emits events from the Shopify core system. For example, there are events emitted by Shopify, which are called the standard events, where people perform standard actions on an e-commerce platform, like a page view, an add to cart, or checkout completed. Then there's these pixels that can subscribe to these events, process the data coming with the event, and communicate the processes data and payload to external services like Google Analytics, for example. This pixel doesn't have access to the DOM, has a limited access to cookie in a controlled way, and respect the user consent preferences. We're going to see how in a minute. So this is an event flow that explains how this pixel operates. So, for example, when there's an event like a page view, the event is transmitted to the event pass, which is then passed through all your custom pixel that you connected to your store, and your custom pixels send data to external services. The flow is very simple. So this kind of sandboxing, as we said, reduces the data exposure and can have a granular content management in terms that each pixel might have different options for what is allowed or not based on how they're using data. And also is super reliable because it prevents that scripts will modify the DOM, compromising the checkout and producing errors. And this, I think, is particularly important for Shopify because I imagine they had very hard time in the past trying to control what kind of JavaScript you can execute into the checkout liquid code. And also it's designed to scale because when you implement a pixel that it works once, you can use that pixel into multiple stores. And I mean, it's kind of relevant for us as an agency because once we implement, for example, a good pixel for GTM, we can use it on multiple stores. But this is super important for public application. For example, Google provides a pixel for directly connecting with Google Analytics with one click. And the same for Facebook, for TikTok, and whatever. Other platform might consume these kind of events. In my experience, if you need some custom tracking, they're very limited yet. but at least is a starting point for smaller stores. So let's see it in action a little bit. This is one of our development stores, and in the settings of the store, let's go here, settings, customer events. We are seeing here all the pixels connected to our store. This is the one, the Google and YouTube one that I mentioned before, that already has an analytics tracker implemented. And this is a custom pixel that I wrote for this presentation. So as you can see, the core of the pixel is just, let me zoom a little bit, is just some JavaScript code that use the provided API and subscribe to some events and does something with the event. For example, in this case, I just subscribed to all the events that are emitted by Shopify, and then I console log the event in the browser. Let's see here in our store. If I reload the page, event received. And I can see here all the information about this specific event. Is a page view and has some context. If I enter into a product, we receive two events. One is page viewed and the other one is product viewed. In the product viewed, we also have some important data related to the event, which contains in the payload the information about the product that we are visiting. So a more practical implementation example might be on checkout completed, when we get the order data from the event, the order ID, the total price, the currency, and which items were included into the checkout that just completed. And we call an external tracking platform with the information about the event. Sweet and simple. Let's see together some documentation about this feature. If we go on the Shopify.dev docs, we will see a very clear documentation about how this works and which kind of API is exposed. For example, in any pixel, we have the analytics object, which allow us to subscribe to events, which is what we used before. But also we have other interfaces, like, for example, the browser, which expose some cookies, the cookies that Shopify wants us to read, local storage, session storage, and other things. Then we will have access to the customer privacy. We will see later in detail. And also we have access to some other elements, like the context where the session is happening. For example, here we have access to the document, which some information about the document. And then we have settings that are, something only needed if you're implementing a pixel into an application. Most importantly, I wanted to see with you these standard events, which are what we discussed before. For example, the cart viewed, checkout address info submitted. These are these standard things that tracking platform want to see. And within each of these events, if we open one of them, we have a set of information that are attached to the event. This payload contains the information that Shopify wants us to see in that context. On a side note, there is a way to emit custom events. For example, we can publish from the storefront any events that we want. And into the pixel, we can subscribe to those events. So if we need something extra, some events that is not provided by Shopify, for example, someone clicked on a specific promotion or a menu item or did some configuration for the product, we can use this to send the event to the pixels. Please, Massi?
Yeah, about the all events, is there a way to understand when they are emitted? Because, for example, in our case in Cometier, we built a sidecar, and we have a custom theme. So the event or the add to cart event, for example, is fired multiple times. So one when we add the product to the sidecar, and another one when we really go to the checkout. So I don't really understand how the events are fired, and I think I don't even get it in the documentation, probably. So it's, at least for me, it's confusing understand when these events are fired, because it's all managed by Shopify and we cannot, at least I cannot understand how can I manage the events, or how can these events are fired.
So you said you're getting the product added to cart event twice from Shopify, one where the product is added to the cart, one when the cart is opened?
Not twice, but when we click on the add to cart button, it will add to the sidecar.
Yeah.
And that one is fine. But when from the sidecar we go to the checkout, we fire another event, but it's not really add to cart, it's more like go to checkout.
Well, I think that's strange. It's probably for how you're using the API they provide to go to the checkout or add things to the cart. But if I understood correctly, there should be a JavaScript file that is added to your store, to your team by Shopify. And that includes all these kind of primitives and core mechanisms to fire these events. So like you should be able in some way through the browser console and backtrace to understand what is emitting that event.
Okay, I'll take it a look.
I mean, there's no magic there. I think it's just a JavaScript file that emits these events when things happens. You can even call them manually. So probably you're doing something that is calling this trigger.
Okay, thank you.
If you want, we can take a look together later.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go ahead. Okay, let's talk about consent because we mentioned this before. So, how does it work? When people give consent to specific preferences with our cookie policy manager, this consent is collected by Shopify and is stored securely on the Shopify platform. And then for every events, the preferences are checked, and the pixel is fired only if specific preferences are granted for that pixel. Let's see how it works. When we accept cookies, for example, all the cookies, this is a user content banner. Sorry, it's in Italian, but I think you will understand what does it mean. Basically, this allows to map maps the options of the consent to some permission required within the pixel. So, for example, this pixel on the right will only fire when both marketing, analytics, and preference consent is given for the specific user. So when we, on the user side, do not allow for marketing, analytics, and preferences, it means that we are stopping this cookie to be triggered. Let's see in Shopify how this works. In the cookie banner preference, we have this consent log. The consent log stores all the information about the customers. In this case, we don't have any information about the customer because it was a guest, but still we have their consent preferences with some information. And we know that this user accepted these preferences here. And in our custom pixel, right now is not required any permission, but we can specify which kind of permission we need to run this code. Please, Andrew.
Do you mind taking a page back on the presentation? Oh,
sure. This one?
I was curious for the user consent. If I'm assuming maybe some users have different consent providers, do we need to make some sort of mapping between the consent options and what's available on the pixel settings?
Yes, great question. So this one is the one provided by Shopify, the built-in cookie banner. But yes, if we have a custom cookie, yes, cookie bot, whatever, we have to map the consent given to these platforms with the Shopify consent system. And there's an API for that. It's a JavaScript API that you can use when the consent, basically, you can, with this platform, you can build a callback when the consent is given, when the consent is updated. You can call the Shopify API to update the consent of this of the current session, and this will immediately be reflected into the pixel. There's a mapping basically needed. Yeah. So this is the Andrew. Is it okay? Do you have
yes, thank you. Yeah, that answers it. Thank you.
Nice, thanks. So let's go ahead. The privacy API that we have within the pixel allow us to check the customer privacy. For example, we might still allow the pixel to run no matter what the privacy given, but we can granularly act within the pixel to do one action or the other. For example, we can check the customer privacy status for the current user, and in case marketing is allowed, we can send the full payload to the marketing tool. Instead, if marketing was not allowed, we might be sending a limited payload. Another thing that we can do within the pixel is subscribing to the customer privacy change. So, for example, into the pixel, we might want to do some action when the customer privacy changes, and we subscribe to an event that reads the new customer privacy which has been updated and does something. One practical example of this is people land to your website without giving consent, then they give consent, and you want to fire a page view at that point. So let's take a look at the underlying technology for these pixels. The basic concept is sandboxing. What does it mean? It means creating a controlled space where people can inject code which doesn't interfere with the rest of the application. This has not been invented by Shopify. It's a standard in the web, and it's the same concept that is used by browsers. For example, Chrome and other browsers use this concept to keep all the tabs separated each other and to control the I/O devices that are connected to the browser. This allows for, if there are any security implication within one of the tabs you're using, you are sure that that tab is not allowed to play with other tabs or the interfaces that are connected with the browser. The concept is very similar and is based on the principle of least privilege. And let's see a little bit more in detail how it works. But basically, it's just an iframe. Oh, there's a typo here. It's made by the AI, of course, not by myself. So it's just an iframe. When we specify where is the content of the iframe we want to render, and then we add this option, Sandbox, which tells to the browser that the specific iframe doesn't have access to the parent in any way. Let's see some code. So I prepared this example. It's just a very simple server that serves just an index page and the iframe content. The index page, in a nutshell, is an iframe with that renders the other page, the iframe content, with the sandbox attributes. Please ignore this thing is for me to have some notes here, and the title. And the iframe content just renders a page with a script in it. If we come back here, I reload this page, and we will see the experiment in action. Basically, this is the parent page, and this is the iframe. And there's an error here. I don't know if you can read it because it's very small, but basically it says that it blocked the script because the document frame is sandboxed and the allow script permission is not set. So what we're going to do here is allowing script for this. For this iframe, and try again. Here we go. We have the script running now because we granted to the sandbox the permission to run scripts. But there are other things we could do with the iframe sandbox, the sandboxed iframe. For example, we want to add another message, and this will be stopped because allow models is not set on the sandbox. So what we can do is allow models as well here, and now the sandbox iframe can also create models into the parent document. And one other thing that we might want to do, but it's not wise probably, is trying to modify the parent document from within the iframe. If we try like this, it will say, hey, I can do this. Because I'm not able to see the origin of the iframe technically. So if you allow the same origin option on the iframe, we can see how the inner iframe can also interact with the DOM. So with that said, for sure, Shopify is not using this last option, allow same origin, because they don't want you to interact with the DOM of the checkout. And if we open a checkout for Shopify, we can see how let me search again for Sandbox here. Okay, so this is our pixel, this iframe. And as you can see, here is the options that they allow. Sandbox, allow scripts, and allow forms. That's it. And as you can see, if you don't trust me, here is the code from their page within the pixel, and exactly what we added into our pixel. So we subscribe to all events, all standard events, and logged event received. So let's briefly take a look at the sandbox options. So there's these allow forms. We let the iframe submit forms, of course, otherwise it's blocked. I guess that Shopify allows this because maybe there could be some posts request emitted from within the sandbox, but I'm not completely sure about why they allow this option. Then there's the allow models, for example, from the example that we saw before, it allows to show a prompt from within the iframe, and other options like orientation lock, pointer lock, pop-ups. Pop-ups escape sandbox, which means that if you open a pop-up, by default, if there's this option, it will inherit all the restriction that was present on all the restrictions that were present on the sandbox. If you use this one instead, the new pop-up will be without restrictions. allow presentation, allow same origin, allow scripts that we saw before, and other things related to storage access and navigation. For example, it might allow to change the top URL of the parent document. Another important details about this technology is how the parent might communicate with the inner iframe and vice versa, because not having access to the DOM, it's it's very hard to exchange information between parent and children. So there's this API, which is called post message, that allows to send a message and receive a message on the other side. Let's see how this works. For example, inside the iframe, we might have an object, and then we might want to post a message into the parent from the iframe. And into the parent, we might set an event listener that might check if the event is from a controlled origin, and then process the event if it's what they were expecting. The same thing can be done on the other side by sending an event from the parent to the sandbox. And this is the technology that Shopify uses to send the events that we saw before into the pixels. It is important because they control what is the payload of these events. Sorry. Yeah, here. I think what they do is very, very similar. And they control exactly what information are sent into the pixel. So let's take a look at the checkout. If we open the iframe that is generated for our pixel, we will see that Shopify is injecting a JavaScript on top of it. So what I did is passing this into ChatGPT and asking a very stupid question: what does this code do? And let's go very briefly on the answer. And it said that it's a sandbox runtime for Shopify that loads and executes third-party pixel code in an isolated worker frame and adds a lot of polyfills and locks down the browser API, of course. So this JavaScript probably includes a lot of limitations that Shopify is setting for avoiding you to mess with the checkout or with the other piece of an infrastructure. Despite it is controlled, because we know that the sandbox cannot interact with the DOM, cannot do a lot of things. They are still creating allow list and redefining some of the core API of the browser to restrict what you can do with JavaScript in that piece. And so it's a bit of the sandboxed iframe on steroids. There is no DOM access, controlling cookie session and local storage access, only allow for passing structured data. And there's a controller external communication, as we saw. There's a custom fetch, and the execution is constant aware. But is it perfect? Of course, no, because in my experience, this is very limiting. and I have some points for that. For example, the structured data that they provide is not enough. For a client, we were trying to send within the purchase event when the checkout is completed, the cost of good for all the items, both, and it was almost impossible because they are not providing that information. So you have to find some hacks to make external call to the API, retrieve the cost of good for all the products included in the cart, wait for the response, and then send the information to the third-party service. But if the user closed the browser while you're waiting for the API to respond, you're lost the purchase event, which is not ideal. And of course, it's very, very complex for a simple thing that you need to do. Another thing that is important to mention is that it's hard to debug. For example, Google Tag Assistant, which is you're probably familiar with if you used Google Tag Manager in the past, is not compatible with this technology, probably because it's not able to see data within the sandboxed iframe. So it's not able to understand which kind of data is sent to Google Tag Manager. Then the auto tracking Google Analytics doesn't work out of the box. When you install the the Google Analytics script on your website, for example, there's an automatic page view. There's and a lot of measurement that are automatically sent to analytics. Those are not compatible with this technology, so you have to send all of those information manually from the pixel. Often also requiring the teams to send the specific events like a scroll or something like that, and then emitting the event on your own. Another note to do is on the URL of the document, which is unreliable because it doesn't contain the URL of the parent element, but it's the iframe URL. And we can see an example here on our demo. I prepared this other console log here. So if we print the document location href, which is what used to determine the URL of the page, we will see that it's not the root of the document, but it's the URL of the pixel, basically. And so to solve this, you have to manually, in the page view event, we have the context, we have the document, and we have the location. Shopify is providing the parent URL location in this property here. So you have to manually take this location and send the URL to the external services. Then another point is that the pixel provided by apps are almost black boxes because you don't have control over it. So if you install the Facebook app, only God knows what they're doing with your checkout. Of course, you can see by inspecting the DOM and seeing what's the content of the pixel, but you don't have any control over it. Yeah, it's done. I mean, despite the limits, I think this is a good technology, and but it requires the ecosystem to adapt to it. Probably in the next years, we will see the standard tools be very, very compatible with this technology and providing more support. And also for us as an agency, we probably can build a library of pixels that we use for specific services. For example, GTM is the first on the list. There's really no reason to re-implement from scratch every time we need it. And I want to leave you before we finish with a reflection about why don't we use these sandboxed iframes for other pieces of our website. For example, there are a lot of pieces where a lot of places where we just throw some JavaScript into the page without worrying about the implication of that. But with this technology, we might wrap that code into a sandbox iframe, controlling exactly which kind of access that piece has into our system to enhance the security. And sometimes I think it will save us a lot of time. For example, I try to imagine an iframe that just renders user-generated content, for example, a review of a product or stuff like that, into a sandbox, which means that even if we allow them to add scripts or whatever to that piece of generated content, we are sure that that specific code will not interact with our parent document and will not break our website, especially if we don't allow script and stuff like that. And that's it. Thank you. If you have any question. Please, Andrew.
Would you mind going back? I think it's 2 slides, like the downsides of pixels, all that glitters. Yes. For the example that you showed, where for the URLs of the document inside the iframes are unreliable, and then you showed the example, like for example, if the event was like a checkout started, and so we know that fires. Well, it's supposed to fire on the checkout page of Shopify, but I guess you're also showing that the URL of the pixel is going to be slightly different. I guess the question here is, we in the project that I'm currently working on, we're noticing like some drop-offs with the, at least on checkout, with the pixel URL, though we don't know exactly if they even made it to checkout, because at least in the report that we're looking at, it looks like apparently the pixel may be opened up. Yeah, it's opened up, but we can't tell for certain if they made it past that, just because of the limitations of the tools we're seeing. So I don't know if I guess the question is like, would there be a way to have more certainty of which URL they dropped off? Was it potentially the pixel URL or the actual checkout URL? Does that question?
Yeah, where are you seeing this data in Google Analytics?
We're looking at Hotjar, so we're looking at recordings, and the recording, we have the screenshot. It looks like all of a sudden the screenshot ends, but the last exit page URL is the pixel URL, which from our standpoint, it looks like, it looks like they didn't complete checkout, and they just like they just went to the checkout page.
I think that's because Hotjar, for example, is not compatible with the Pixel infrastructure. So,
okay.
And I recall this because we had the same problem on another client. Basically, the Shopify narrative for this is you don't have to take care of checkout conversion because that's on us. So there's no need for you to analyze what users are doing on the checkout page, and they don't allow you to track the user behavior on the checkout pages. So I guess that you added Hotjar on the team. So before you landed there, directly in the storefront and not through the pixel. But yeah, I recall from a past client that they don't allow to track behavior like with tools like Hotjar on the checkout.
I see. Okay. I guess when you talked about like all the what the lockdown security policies of Pixel, that makes sense. I guess from our perspective, it's just like at least it looks like it's hard to tell if they even completed checkout, because maybe it's a limitation of this. So
yeah, they probably are explicitly blocking Hotjar from the JavaScript that we saw before. There is like redefining the fetch and stuff like that. They're probably like probably Hotjar is not in their allow list, and they can't execute anything or send data to Hotjar from within the pixel.
Okay. I guess one thing that we were considering is potentially sending more data attributes of the user or the session in Hotjar, and then maybe there will be like a manual after the fact to see if they actually went to checkout, because at least I think what's happening right now is like we're flagging some of these cases where they go to checkout and they drop off, and then we're seeing the trend is like they're dropping off on a lot of these pixel related URLs.
Yeah, maybe you can emit a custom event when people click on the checkout button and intercept that in a pixel, and just send information to Hotjar about this specific thing happened, and then I mean, probably Hotjar, I don't know if they have a way to just get unstructured information like checkout started, checkout completed, without the full context of what people are doing on the page. But that might be an option. Andrew, if you want, we can take a look together later.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
definitely try to help.
Thank you for the context. Although this is definitely all helpful and provides more context for the problem, so I appreciate it.
Thanks for the question. Any other question or thoughts? Thanks, Ryan. Okay.
Alberto, I think that it's all. Thank you.
Thank you
for your talk.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.